All right, welcome everyone. We're so glad you're here tonight. You're in for big treats. We actually have the Senior Director of Outreach, Jason Say, here to speak with you all about financial aid, filling out the FAFSA, just great information. So we've known each other a long time, and I feel very fortunate to have gotten him here. So here you go, Jason.
Can I start? What is it?
Yeah, sure.
Guys, give me 1 second. Start.
Sing a song? You might run out if I need some good music going. Yes, just what I might do. Send out the part that I'm saying. Ready?
All right, so this is already a win because this is the best looking presentation. I'm not talking about my slides, I'm just talking about the fact that that's a good projector. You guys can see that clearly. Michelle, bless some of the schools. I've been around statewide lately, but there's been a lot of like green tinting going on, and so I'm impressed, guys.
Our last senior parent presentation was via Zoom, and we had videotaped this nice video, and halfway through it starts sounding like a Mickey Mouse voice, and I had no control over it, so they endured that, so, yeah.
I'm going to start this way to say it's an honor to be here tonight. For Michelle knows this, Miss Jackie may know this, but for honestly the last 2 years, I've been behind a monitor doing presentations. My heart is out doing presentations in person like this. This feels really good. This is actually, I believe, my first time in Untitled High School, and what a beautiful, beautiful building you guys have. So tonight, I don't know what your expectations are. Keep them low. I say that I've been doing this for 16 years, and I am with the state of Tennessee. So obviously, we're going to talk about the Hope Scholarship. We're going to talk about the Promise Scholarship. I know some of you, maybe your students are considering going out of state. Please understand the process that I'm going to outline is the same, right? No matter what, just understand selfishly, the money from my office can only be used in Tennessee, right? But I say that somewhat in jest because, as a family, I don't know what you guys always expect during these presentations, so hopefully you will walk away learning something. Jackie, on this first slide, thank you. I always begin here, the shock and awe about college cost. So folks, these are simply examples. But as moms, dads, as parents, as guardians, what I do encourage all my families to do as you go through this process is make sure when you visit a college website, you search for the cost of attendance so that you get an outline of your potential costs for 1 year of college. Now what you see here in these three types, right? The 2-year public, that is Columbia State, for example. And again, folks, keep in mind, this is before we talk financial aid, right? Grant scholarships, etc. But if we were just to pay out of pocket, right? 2-year public, the example there would be Columbia State. 4-year public, that would be MTSU. Schools like UT Knoxville is a little bit more expensive, but the 4-year public example broadly is MTSU. And then the private college example, that would be a Belmont, a Lipscomb. Folks, bottom line is these are examples, right? Every college will have their own costs in terms of tuition, housing, etc. I challenge all of my families, if you haven't, as your student is applying for college, make sure you're searching their websites for the cost of attendance just so that you have an idea, an understanding of what your student's potential costs may be for 1 year of college. Jackie, next slide. So, financial aid. Broad definition, any money that is awarded or lent to a student to help pay for their college education. Why do I give you this basic definition? because sometimes folks, when, just have learned this working with y'all, when you hear the term financial aid, I think some of you may instantly turn whomever off because you're thinking about money that's based on your financial need. Folks, those of us in the profession of financial aid, those of us who are financial aid administrators, financial aid is just simply the broad term. Jackie, next slide. It's the broad term because there are 4 types of financial aid, right? There are scholarships. Y'all know what scholarships are. It's free money that's based upon your students' academics. Students that, generally speaking, have higher grade point averages, do very well in the ACT or do very well in the SAT. Folks, they're more likely to receive scholarships, or those scholarships that may be more valuable than others, right? The one thing I always like to teach families, especially if this is your first time going through the college process, I don't know, for those of us that have been to college ourselves, honestly, I don't know if it's changed that much for me 20, 25 years ago versus today, but I do like to break down when it comes to scholarships and when your schools begin sharing your financial aid offer. You need to understand what you're looking at in terms of if a scholarship is offered, is it renewable versus is it non-renewable? Something that's renewable can be received year after year, typically as long as certain things are maintained, like a grade point average, versus some scholarships that you may be offered may be non-renewable, meaning one and done. And over the last, I want to say 6 or 7 years, working with students, again, all across the state, what I picked up on a little bit is some colleges do a really good job of recruiting your students and front-loading them with non-renewable money, which makes college look pretty affordable year one. But if you're not doing your due diligence and asking, what is this money? Like, can my child receive it in year 2 and in year 3? What's happening for some students is after they finish year 1, then I get a phone call summer beginning year 2 and say, well, I got $10,000 less of financial aid this year. What's going on? And after maybe calling a few contacts, what we learn is, again, some colleges will front load students with non-renewable scholarships. Folks, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just as a consumer, if I may use that term with us, as a consumer, I just want to be able to compare apples to apples, right? Especially if my child's college decision is based on money, right? If I have the wherewithal as a family to write a check, honestly, that might not matter. But for some of us, that does, and that's why I like to take the time to explain. Make sure when you receive and review a financial aid offer from your prospective colleges, if there are scholarships which are packaged, if you don't know if they're renewable versus non-renewable, you need to ask the college that question. All right, grants. Free money that's awarded based upon your financial need. This financial need, generally speaking, at least when we talk about Pell Grant, selfishly in a bit when we talk about the Tennessee Student Assistance Award, that financial need is determined by what's called the expected family contribution. This, folks, let's not overthink it. It's simply a number that's derived when you complete the FAFSA. All right, when you complete the FAFSA and you enter your income, your tax information, your student's income, if they file taxes, their tax information, number in the household, number going to college, FAFSA will calculate your expected family contribution, which is, I try to teach families, is simply a number that the colleges will use to allow them to determine, are you a family whose child is eligible for a Pell Grant and or a Tennessee Student Assistance Award if you are in Tennessee, or are you a family who does not qualify? All right, simple as that. So grants, remember, if you do qualify, free money based upon that expected family contribution. Loans, we all know what loans are. It's money you borrow that ultimately you must pay back plus interest. And then finally, work study. And this is back to Fafsa, which we'll talk about more at the end of the presentation. So the Fafsa stands for, those of you, if this is your first time, the free application for federal student aid. On the Fafsa, section 1, student demographics, the student is asked the following question. Do you want to be considered for federal work study? The answer is yes. The answer should always be yes. This allows the student, right, as they go through the financial aid process, if they are offered federal work study, what that will allow them, give them the option, is to work on that college campus 8, 10, 12 hours a week, and it gives them a paycheck, right? The benefits to federal work study, unlike when I work at Chick-fil-A, and on the FAFSA when I have to report that income, it does count, quote, against my expected family contribution. If I'm a work study student, any income that comes in my pocket, it actually does not get counted against my EFC, right? So for some students who are grant eligible, right, work study is another benefit because it does not negatively impact their overall need. Versus if I'm working at, like my wife did in college, the Gap, right? Or Chick-fil-A or something like that. So, again, back to the FAFSA, work study. Answer that yes. Moms, dads, some of you may be saying, Jason, I don't want my kid working in college. I get it. If your child is offered work study and they choose not to do it, they can decline it. So they're not obligated. But I would at least encourage you to say yes, so that's an option. Jackie, next slide. So, here are your 4 sources of aid. Specifically, where students and families should be concerned with applying for specifically grants and scholarships, all right? We really just tackled the work study question on the FAFSA. We'll talk a little bit about loans in a bit, but let's focus on grants and scholarships, the free stuff. And I think for probably the majority of you, you know, maybe specifically scholarships, like where should we be looking to apply? So I'm your state guy. I'm going to talk to you about state financial aid here in a bit. That's outlined in the brochure that you picked up as you walked in here to this evening. I'll also take a slide. Michelle, do one click. I'll also take some time to talk about federal aid here tonight, in addition to FAFSA. Because generally speaking, folks, those 2 top sources of aid are typically automatically applied for when you complete the FAFSA, right? So that's kind of good takeaway 1. I do the FAFSA. If I'm attending college in Tennessee, that's going to allow me to be considered for both state and federal aid. For a couple of my moms and dads that I heard your child may be considering my alma mater, Michelle's alma mater, WKU, or UAH, guys, understand you're going to do the FAFSA as well. I don't care where you're going to college, do the FAFSA. But understand if you're going outside the state of Tennessee, you are eliminating the state source of aid, right? Because my money, the Tennessee Hope Scholarship, the Tennessee Promise Scholarship, the Tennessee Student Assistance Award, guess what? You've got to attend college in Tennessee to potentially receive those monies. If you go to WKU, if you go to Murray State, if you go to Tuscaloosa and the University of Alabama, you're not going to receive the Tennessee money to go outside the state with you. Michelle, another click. So, your homework assignment, if you've not already done this, let's focus on the college block. As your students are applying to college, many of which perhaps have already applied to several colleges, again, maybe in the process of applying for more, folks, it is imperative as a family, as they are on that college's website. I get some of you may be doing the Common App, awesome, but you better be going to that college website individually and searching what is School X's scholarship process and financial aid process. Every school is different. Unlike those first 2 sources where I can basically say do the FAFSA and you're going to be covered, with the college, quote, scholarship offerings, it looks different school to school. So I drove up to Clarksville this morning. I've been doing classroom presentations all day. And as I was driving through downtown, MTSU's put up 2 big billboards talking about their scholarships. Deadline December 1st. And I was like, wow, how awesome is that? If I'm a prospective Blue Raider, MTSU is telling me what I need to do. It is, I need to apply for scholarships December 1st. Now folks, I did not see what website you need to go to. I assume go to mtsu.edu and start from there. But the point is, every college will have its own process. And what you will find is many colleges will ask you to complete one or multiple scholarship applications in order to be considered for all scholarships at that university. If I have any prospective Vanderbilt students, or Sewanee students, or Rhodes College students down in Memphis, so in addition to whatever scholarship applications they ask you to qualify, these 3 schools in Tennessee require the CSS profile. So the CSS profile, years ago, I started saying this, it's the Fafsa on steroids, because, the Fafsa is like one level of discomfort or whatever for many families feel that way. I promise it's not that bad. But that said, where some of you may bristle at some of the questions that the FAFSA may ask, for example, about your income or your assets, the profile asks more questions about your value of your home and value of your stuff that you have, right? And they get a little bit more intrusive. Well, why is this? Well, because these colleges will offer you a lot of financial aid if you qualify for it, right? Whether that's grants or scholarships. And so they need a full picture that only the profile can give them, unlike the FAFSA. So just understand, as you're reviewing your college scholarship process with each institution, if you see one that requires the CSS profile, just heads up. That is a requirement at some colleges. I just named the 3 in Tennessee that require it. The other thing I'll say about this, from a deadline perspective, deadlines are going to be all across the spectrum when it comes to these colleges. And so again, you just have to be mindful and do the research. Some parents will ask, Jason, doesn't my child have to be admitted in order to apply for scholarships? Not necessarily, folks. Like some colleges allow you to apply for admission at the same time applying for scholarships. So again, you have to research with each college what their process is, right? And then just follow from there. The last source, it's all right, Jackie, you're good. The last source is private aid. And Michelle, Jackie, if I may ask, do y'all post like your local scholarships on the website, or do you send out a newsletter or something?
There's a Williamson County scholarship list.
Okay.
Up until actually just today, parents did not have access to that. All the students do though. But they have now converted that to a PDF file. So I will actually be sending out a link that parents have access to that. But we post all of our scholarships in schools.
So parents, they're going to be sending you a PDF of all the Williamson County scholarships, which that right there to me is the private source of scholarships that I was going to talk about. Yes, ma'am.
Is it okay to ask questions?
Of course it is.
So, question about college scholarships.
Yes.
And I know, for example, at the issue is deadline in December. Is it in the child's best interest to try to apply sooner? Is it, in other words, do they consider the first applicants as they come in, or?
Mom, great question. So a question for everybody. So, Jason, with college scholarships, does it behoove my child to apply sooner rather than wait to the deadline? And Mom, again, it varies by college. Being in Clarksville today. So Austin P, and folks, I'll defer to Austin P. I have not fact checked this season, but for years, her scenario, if I was interested in APSU, it would behoove me to apply early, because they have had in the past a first come, first served scholarship awarding mindset. But other colleges, right, going back to some colleges, however, don't allow you to apply to scholarships until you've been accepted. But you only know that if you go to their website and read that. On the other hand, some schools, for example, like Middle, you got till December 1st to apply. And at that point in time, that's when they'll start looking at their applicants, their scholarship applicants, and have a scholarship committee that will then award scholarships. As Michelle and probably Miss Jackie knows, my former colleague, Annie Stroud, she, back in the day, was an MTSU admissions person who sat on their scholarship committee. And so again, every college is different. So again, research. Ms. Jackie.
I wanted to add to that, a lot of our students, they will say, I don't want to apply right now because I want to wait to take the ACT again. And I always encourage the student to go ahead and apply to the school. And with UT especially, we went to a UT workshop with the UTs, UTK, UTC, and they were saying that you can update your ACT score. So if you're at a 27, and then you've already applied, and so you're at this level of scholarship money, and then you get that 32, and it raises it up. You can go in and put that 32 in there, and submit that 32 to them, which they will award that money. So it's always best to me to go ahead and apply.
Exactly, great comment. And like, speaking for the three of us, and this is why we do these type of programs. Unfortunately, folks, as unknown as some of this process is to you guys, it's obviously as unknown to us unless we work directly with a specific college, right? When we go to UT workshops or MTSU's workshop, that's when we find out this type of information to then share with you. I heard the one parent say, I was about ready to ask about the ACT. You know, for years, you know, some of the questions has been like, when's the last time I can take the ACT for scholarship purposes? And again, from a college perspective, I would defer that question to the college, depending on their scholarship deadline, right? With middles being December 1st, I'm assuming the December ACT is probably a week after, so they probably at MTSU won't consider the December test date, possibly. But another college that may have a scholarship deadline of February 15th may very well take that December test date. So again, just it varies by college.
Yes.
All right. Sorry, Ms. Jackson. Next slide, if you don't mind.
Well, I also wanted to say, Jason, I'm sorry, I guess I'll just take over the presentation.
No, you're good.
But
Hey, I've got a lot of talking today, so please.
So when we went to the UT workshop, they also said, I think UTC, and I always tell my kids, I think, because I want them to look into it, because I cannot remember all the dates. UTC is a first come, first served scholarship-based school. So I tell them, they say UTC, I'm like, get on that scholarship application right now. And I always tell them to check and look at those deadline dates, just as Jason is saying. You have to know the deadline dates, because you miss it, you're out.
Jackie, that's good info.
But going on, just touching a little more on that, the people that fill out the FAFSA form first, is there an advantage to do that? Or some people wait and go, wait till the holidays are over and get through the holidays and then I will fill it out?
So to that question about FAFSA, guys, I'm in person because I don't know you, right? I don't know your financial situation at home. So I treat all of us equally, assuming that all of us might have the possibility of qualifying for Pell Grant dollars, for example. That being said, Michelle, I always say to my families, as you've heard for years, guys, just make it a habit. Get the FAFSA knocked out in October, November. Because beyond the idea of where there might be some monies connected with FAFSA that's first come, first served, the other thing is some of these colleges that for merit-based aid programs, and you heard me right, for merit-based aid programs may also factor in the FAFSA. If they have a priority deadline of December 15th versus my priority deadline of March 1st, I learned a long time ago, folks, that it's best when this FAFSA became an October application. I just need to teach you guys. Do the FAFSA every year in October/November. Get it out of the way. That way, you don't have to worry about all these deadlines. Because guess what? all of us that use the FAFSA for various reasons for awarding, whether it's need-based aid or merit-based aid, we all have different deadlines. For example, now that you see this slide, notice for TSEA, March 1, that's our priority deadline for being considered for TSEA. Now, I feel like you guys can handle this, so I'm going to say this about the Hope Scholarship. I never tell you when you have to complete the FAFSA for the Hope Scholarship. Why? Because it's not actually until next September 1st is the deadline for fall payment. So the FAFSA that you need to complete next month, for Hope purposes, you could actually wait until next September 1st to do it and get paid Hope Scholarship. Now, Michelle, think about that. I should not be, right, educating my family's that, because why? Some of you procrastinate. That's why you, again, I feel like here, and again, here I am, first time at Millsville High School. Folks, my experience, whether right or wrong, with WCS schools, I feel like y'all can handle that, and you will listen to me and do your FAFSA October, November. But understand, different programs have different FAFSA deadlines. That's why, I say do it early. Michelle, the other point is, to your point, the only program now connected to FAFSA from a government perspective, and I'm speaking for government, not the college, but from a government perspective, for, I'm going to say someone like myself. When I was applying to WKU years and years and years ago, I was a Pell Grant recipient. Based on my mom and dad's income, I also received what was called the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. That's a mouthful. FSEOG. That is a limited fund of money for the neediest of students that gets awarded. And generally speaking, that pot of money, which could be just an additional $500, $1,000, but still $500, $1,000, that typically is awarded to students who apply in October, again, that have the most need.
And I think maybe from the conference I just went to, they were speaking about for merit-based scholarships.
Yeah.
If you've not filled out the FAFSA and they do not have that information, you could potentially, that could put you in a different level or different amount of money. So that's why I do it.
Hey guys, one reason that some schools are, even for merit-based aid programs, now for years have started, requiring the FAFSA for merit-based aid programs, their merit-based aid programs, is because they've worked with enough students over the years. And again, think about this from a global perspective, not a Knowlesville High School perspective, but from a global perspective. There are students where this myth permeates of, we don't need the FAFSA, we're not going to qualify for anything. And unfortunately, it's some students, like in Tennessee, I can sell FAFSA to you guys because Hope Scholarship. Now, if you just don't want the Hope Scholarship, all right, well, I can't make you do the FAFSA, but the Hope Scholarship has made the sale of FAFSA here in Tennessee pretty easy, as well as now Promise. But from a merit-based aid program standpoint, there have been students that have missed out on need-based aid because of that myth that, I'm not going to qualify. Again, do the FAFSA and see what happens from there.
Jason, I definitely want to say some of our students are saying that in our offices. They're saying, I'm not going to fill it out. I beg you guys, please fill that out.
Yep.
And pass that word around. Please fill that out.
All right, so folks, selfishly, we're going to talk Tennessee for a few slides. So in this case, and this information is in your brochure, we're going to start with 4-year public and private colleges. So lesson 1. These 4 programs a student can receive, whether it's at UT Chat, UT Knox, MTSU, Vanderbilt, Belmont, Lipscomb, Sewanee, Rhodes. So most all public and private 4-year colleges in Tennessee are eligible for these 4 programs, period. To apply for these 4 programs, got to do FAFSA, period. There's no separate applications, not for these, you got to do the FAFSA, all right? Left to right, Tennessee Student Assistance Award. So this is our need-based aid grant. So when you submit the FAFSA, you, on the confirmation screen that says, congratulations student for submitting the 23-24 FAFSA, you will actually see what your expected family contribution is. This is a number, folks, that can range from 0 to 999,000. For TSCA, if a college in Tennessee receives your student's FAFSA and they see that your EFC is between 0 and 5,846, then they're going to know that you are eligible for the Tennessee Student Assistance Award. Now, the award amounts. I think more clear on the brochure, but I actually tried this today and I thought it worked pretty well. On the left-hand side, that $1,000, that's what you would receive at UTK, Middle, Austin PA Public College. $2,000 a semester is what you would receive at Belmont, Lipscomb, Vanderbilt, a private college in Tennessee. Again, TSCA based on that EFC, which is calculated, and you will know in terms of what your EFC is once you submit the FAFSA. Hope Scholarship. Hope has nothing to do with your income. Hope has nothing to do with your EFC. You got to do FAFSA, and your student has to graduate from Nolensville High School with either a 21 ACT composite, that is from a single test set. We do not superscore. Or they must graduate with a 3.0 GPA, which we'll talk a little bit about that GPA in a couple of slides from now. So Hope is based on either or, 21 or 3.0. If you're sitting right here, right now, your child has a 30 ACT, they're going to be eligible for the Hope Scholarship if they attend college in Tennessee. For those of our babies that have taken the ACT multiple times and they just, 17, 19, they just can't quite get to the 21, all right. As long as they graduate with a 3.0 GPA, they will qualify for the Hope Scholarship. Award amount. So in this case, the 2250th semester is for your freshman, sophomore years at any four-year college in Tennessee, right? Whereas the 2850 is your junior, senior award amount at a four-year college in Tennessee. Again, in this case, both public and private. Once you are Hope eligible, there are two supplements, right? Notice where it says Hope Supplement. So this is additional money that a student can be awarded. So if they are Hope eligible, that means a 21 ACT or a 3.0 GPA. For Aspire, if parents' income reported on the FAFSA is $36,000 or less, then that student will receive an additional $750 on top of their Hope money. On the other hand, for those students that have an extreme merit, notice you have to have a 29 ACT composite and, notice the and in this case, a 3.75 GPA. So if you graduate with both, you get an additional $500 on top of your Hope Scholarship. Let me say this before Jackie goes to the next slide. And Jackie, you already went, it's all right. This next slide honestly is going to be the same as this one, but teach you a few things about how Hope's awarded and stuff like that. So, from an ACT perspective, we receive every Tennessean's ACT. Supposedly. But automatically, we have an agreement with ACT that we're supposed to receive every Tennessean's ACT score. So when you do your FAFSA, it lands in our system, everything should then match, right? And eligibility will be established. In a bit, when we talk about Tennessee Promise, here's something that I will say now about the Hope Scholarship. The account your student creates to complete the Promise application, that is the same account where they can track their state aid eligibility. So once you do the FAFSA, you can monitor, are you TSA aid eligible? Are you eligible for the Hope Scholarship? So with that in mind, if your child has a 21 or better already, once you do the FAFSA, once we receive it, if you log into that TSEC account, you should see that they are Hope eligible. If not, you contact me. On the other hand, if you're a parent of a student who's going to be eligible for Hope, but it's going to be based upon the GPA, understand that's a final GPA. We don't receive that from the counseling team until your student graduates. and then sometimes it's a week or 2 or 3 thereafter. So for students that are become eligible for the Hope Scholarship based upon GPA, your Hope eligibility won't be established until they send us that final GPA. So in other words, let's say you're logging into your TSAC account in early June, that's when you should see that you're eligible for the Hope Scholarship, assuming the GPA has been sent. Same thing goes with that GAMS, right? Because of the 29 and 375 requirement, again, you won't officially become GAMS eligible, right? You could be sitting here right now, oh, my child has a 4.0 with a 33 ACT. They're going to go to UTCAT. Like, I get it. You won't officially become GAMS eligible until that final GPA gets to us. You'll be Hope eligible first, but GAMS won't kick in until the grades are sent to us, again, late May, early June. All right,
So is that GPA on the Tennessee Uniform Hope Scholarship, or is that our GPA?
All right, Jackie, if you will, advance two slides. Let's go ahead and get this one out of the way.
Oh, okay.
You're good. All right, one more click. So for anything related to me, Hope Scholarship, General Assembly Merit Scholarship, that's the GAMS Supplement for Hope. We're going to talk about dynamic order at the here in a couple slides, just briefly. For any of my programs, it is that Hope GPA. So folks, you guys have a WCS GPA, right? Understand, your colleges, they may consider your Williamson County GPA for their scholarships. They may, okay? Which is awesome if they do. But just understand, for anything state from me, there's state law says it has to adhere to what's called uniform grading policy, which, you know, for Michelle and I, Jackie, I typically just say it's an unweighted GPA. That's the easiest way to explain it to parents that don't know the difference between an unweighted and what Williamson County does with GPA. Michelle, unless you want to say something active.
No, we typically say it's not actually an unweighted GPA. I mean, now that our scales match, you know, we could go back and say that, but yeah, I mean, we typically want to say that.
Okay, that's good. The only reason I say that is, folks, like for years, like if I was an AP student, I'd get 5 quality points in an AP course if I had a certain grade. Like on the state scale, an A would always be 4 quality points when you calculate. That's why I've always, from a mathematician perspective, for saying that, that's why I always say that. But just understand, guys, it's that Hope GPA that they're going to report for our programs. Good? Cool.
One question before you move on.
Yeah.
You said that for eligibility, you would want to see the final
GPA. Yes.
So I got the impression that the school sends those to you automatically, or is there something the parent needs to do?
No, great question. So basically, Jason, is there anything the parent needs to do for Hope Scholarship purposes to make sure that the GPAs are submitted to the state? The answer is no. I work with this team for years, and they know, I mean, all of the public schools, private schools across the state know, for the most part, to send you their GPAs. As Michelle, Jackie, and I would attest, you know, if for some reason, seriously, because understand, it's sometimes data matching data in our system. If for some reason your child falls through the crack and like you don't see that Hope Scholarship on an award, contact me, you know, and if I have to bug these two, I will. You know, because sometimes it's not their fault, it is that there's something that's not hit our system. Or something our system's not accepting from me or something like that. So there should be nothing you should do other than monitor eligibility from whether it's the TSAC account perspective or the college offer. Yes, sir.
Did you say a date of when we need to apply for the Hope Scholarship?
Yeah, so Dad, Hope Scholarships apply for by the Fafsa. Great question. It's applied for me, the Fafsa. So my recommendation is it opens up next week. Just get in the habit doing the FAFSA October, November, just to get it out of the way. Good question. I will. When I get to the promise, I will then. All right, we'll talk about promises in a second. Jackie, go back a slide, one. there you go, community college, copy and paste. So everything we talked about for four-year public and private colleges, copy and paste from a Columbia State perspective. So understand, you do the FAFSA, if your student elects to attend Columbia State, for example, they're going to be considered for the same programs. TSCA, hope that they have a 21 or 3.0, Aspire, GAMS, everything still applies. There's now, more recently, a myth that, oh, if I go to community college, I can punt my Hope Scholarship for a few years. No, folks. If you're Hope eligible, you're going to get it whether you're at Columbia State, Vanderbilt, or anywhere in between. Okay? First and foremost. Let me say this. UTK. I know this is a community college slide, but I do need to talk about UTK because of this. Another thing I think Michelle, Jackie, and I have seen a lot recently. For our students that want to go to UTK, if they get waitlisted, what UTK has begun doing the last couple of years for students that they, I guess the word is conditionally accept, here's what they're doing. They'll accept you, and I'm not, this is not shade on UT, I promise, it's not. But they'll accept some students conditionally, and they'll say, all right, we'll let you live on campus, pay our dorm housing fee, but you have to take all your classes year one at Mississippi State, which is a community college there locally in Knoxville. Now, why do I bring this up? Well, because it goes back to, you know, what Jackie said about the FAFSA, about some students saying, I don't need to do FAFSA. It also goes to where we're going to talk about promise in a second. Some of these students that say, I don't need to do promise. Well, unfortunately, and I've seen this more in Williamson County than other places, because some students perhaps have not completed the promise process, and then they become waitlisted at UTK. Guess what? Now they cannot go tuition-free to Mississippi State, because if they had done the promise process, they could have, right? And that's happening more and more, and specifically here in Williamson County. All right, so again, just understand why it's important just to do all of these things that we're talking about. Ms. Jackie, do 2 clicks, maybe 3. I don't want to strip over the steps here. All right, TCAP, quick slide. Students that might be interested in one of our vocational schools, our trade schools, our Tennessee Colleges of Applied Technology. Locally, there's the one in Murfreesboro on Highway 96. There's the one in Nashville on White Bridge Road. There's one over in Dixon. There's one down in Pollenwald. There's one in Pulaski. But this is where students can go and pursue a 6-month, 9-month, 12-month program, get a trade, get a certificate diploma, and then go out in the workforce. And in some cases, no offense to me, but make more money than I do. So, you know, it's for some students, this is a awesome option. Folks, it's college, all right? It's college just like community college is, just like four-year university is. It's college. From a FAFSA perspective, you're going to be considered for TSCA. And notice, hope disappears from the slide, and its place is Wilder Navy. Wilder Navy, to qualify, you simply must be a Tennessean that does the FAFSA, that attends a TCAP. Actually, everyone in this room should qualify for Wilder Navy. If we, any of us, I don't care if you have a bachelor's, master's, doctorate, nothing. Like, all of us could go to TCAP tomorrow, do the FAFSA as a Tennessean, we could get Wilder Navy to help pay for a program at the Tennessee College of Applied Technology. Just got to do the FAFSA. Back to Dad's point, do the FAFSA October, November. Next slide. Federal aid, right quick. All right, so that concludes at least some of the state stuff. Federal student aid, right quick, when you do the FAFSA, you know, historically, this is why you did the FAFSA, is to apply for Pell Grant. Obviously, FAFSA has, you know, more and more entities have now used it, like the state of Tennessee, like the colleges. But understand, much like the Tennessee Student Assistance Award, when you do the FAFSA, when that EFC is calculated, if that EFC is between 0 and 6,206, then on the confirmation screen of the FAFSA, you should see your student's estimated Pell Grant award amount. Federal student aid can be used anywhere, in-state or out-of-state. right? It's federal. Parents, these are also the loans that are applied for via FAFSA. The student loan options are the subsidized and unsubsidized loans. The Parent Plus loan option is your option if, as a parent, you need additional loan money to help with your student's college costs. Because from a federal perspective, the maximum your student can borrow in year one of college from FAFSA is $5,500. And when you're looking at potentially where you've got a $10,000, $20,000 balance because you're not receiving enough other free money to help pay, you know, again, it goes back to an earlier comment, right? Some of us may be blessed where we can write a check and we're good. But others of us may have to pursue our loan options. Here's what I always like to say now about loans. This is your last resort. You obviously can decline them if you don't need them. But if you do need to go down this road, speak with your college's financial aid office so that you understand your options. You understand what the student is borrowing, its current interest rate, in addition to what you, as a parent, could potentially borrow as well. I will defer that conversation between you and your prospective college. Jackie, next slide. All right, let's talk about promise. Kind of going back to state aid, but I'm purposefully doing this. All right, so Tennessee Promise, as you open the brochure, there's the flap that shows you your checklist, what a student needs to do. Guys, understand this program that I administer right here. This specifically allows your student to attend Columbia State tuition free. This allows your student to attend the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, Murfreesboro, tuition free. Okay? Tennessee Promise was designed to pay for an associate's degree at one of our 13 community colleges or a certificate diploma at one of our 27 TCATs. That's what this program was designed to do. Now, some of you may be in higher ed, you may know this. Some of our four-year colleges do offer associate degrees in addition to bachelor's degrees. So that's why some of them appear on the Promise application. But let me be very clear. Standing before you, the only colleges I can guarantee tuition-free attendance at are Columbia State or one of the other 13 community colleges, or TCAT Murfreesboro and one of the other 27 TCATs. Those are the ones I can specifically guarantee that from my management, okay? Now that said, to have this as an option, your student has to complete these 4 requirements, beginning with first completing the Promise application. Deadline is November 1. The FAFSA, which I've already said, I want you to do October, November. You actually have all the way until March 1st to do for Promise purposes. And then there's a meeting and community service that the student needs to do. So parents, Ms. Jackie, forgive me, have y'all done Promise? Like an app workshop or?
Well, what we have done is when we went into the senior classrooms, the English teachers, we showed the students this link, and actually one of the English teachers the following day, she had the students to complete their account. Now, our next process, starting next week, Monday and Friday here in the homeroom, we are going to show a video to the students, and we will post that in Schoology exactly what to do. Last year, I should have brought it to show you, Jason, we won the award for the largest high school in Tennessee, the most students who complete the Tennessee Promise. So we've told them we want to keep this up because things change. You never know. So we have already started that process with them, and then we're going to be following up, and I'll send emails out to you guys just reminding you about that. Yes.
Real quick, because you said they started it in the English class.
Yes.
What if they're in dual enrollment? Was that different? Would they have not done that?
That's a good question. So we went into the library because dual enrollment, I don't know if your student is out of the building dual enrollment, my kids that are out of the building dual enrollment, I've met with them as well. The kids that are in the building in dual enrollment, that means that they're enrolled in Comp 1 or Comp 2 in the building. We did go to the library and met with them. Again, some of the students are saying, you know, I don't need that. Here's my thing. And I always try to tell them, if your family dynamics changes, what if a parent loses a job? Unfortunately, you know, sometimes it does happen. You may need that to fall back on. And we're only preaching in the building that this is a safety net, that's all. You don't have to use it, you don't have to do anything to create this account. We did have a student here before I arrived, Ms. Brown tells the story, that was in a car accident, unfortunately broke his leg. Parents did not want him to go off because of the many doctor's appointments, so they wanted him to go to Columbia State to stay close to them. Luckily, he had filled that Tennessee Promise created that account. So please just do it as a safety net. That's all. Your students do need their Social Security number. That's required by Jason's office. You all can talk to him about why it's required. But please fill it out. It's just a safety net and you can just go on. I don't expect many kids to use it, but you know, you just never know. But yeah, if they haven't, you can always send them to the counseling office to ask questions. Yes. I'm sorry.
On that same note, if family things change or the world changes and the kid decides not to go to college, this first year after filling out Fafsa and Tennessee Promise and all these things,
What happens?
what happens then?
That's a good
Right?
question.
That's a great question. And one that obviously we have been being asked for, I would say even pre-pandemic was a great question. Obviously during this thing, becoming even a better question. So folks, as we talk about all this stuff, for example, if a college offers your student multiple scholarships and he or she decides to take a gap year, first, you gotta ask that college, well, what happens? Because that's up to them. Some colleges may honor that gap year. I'm gonna tell you, there will be some colleges that says, you know what, we're gonna take your scholarships away and you're gonna have to reapply and you may not, get as good a deal. From a state perspective, all right? So need-based aid is based upon each year's FAFSA. So like Pell Grant eligibility TLCA, that's just based on each year's FAFSA. So you simply have to reapply to determine, for the college to determine, do you qualify for need-based aid that given year. For Hope Scholarship purposes, we do allow a gap year. Specifically this, again for Hope Scholarship purposes. If I graduate in May of 2023, per state law, you have until August of 2024 to begin college, to start that Hope Clock. There's a reason I use the term Hope Clock, because some of you may follow up with a question, which I'll just go ahead and talk here. But what if my child enrolls initially at an out-of-state college? What happens then? Well, per state law, that's fine. As long as they enroll at a regionally accredited college or an eligible Tennessee college within 16 months of graduation, their Hope Clock begins, which means this to me. If I go to Ole Miss, which is SACS accredited, that starts my Hope Clock, which means if at any time in year 2, year 3, year 4, if I were to transfer back to Tennessee, that student could potentially still be Hope eligible, right? And again, some of you are like, oh, I did not know that. Folks, it's been that way. I've been doing this since 2006. It's been that way since 2006. But the gap year, Hope allows for it, specifically a gap year. But by August of 2024, I've got to be either at an eligible Tennessee college for Hope or a regionally accredited out-of-state college to at least get that clock started. Down from a promise perspective, as of this moment, a gap year is not allowed. This is a use it or lose it program. Either you complete the process and start at Columbia State next fall, or TCAT next fall, or you lose that opportunity. I did preface it by, as of this moment, I will tell you, I'm one internally that would like to see us to extend a gap year for this as well. What I would say, Jackie, you brought up a great example. If life does happen, you can appeal a gap year to us for promise purposes. If there was a medical issue or something like that, So we will definitely listen to those and approve those as we see fit. But for the majority of students, gap years for promise are not allowed. Michelle?
Okay, so I just want to be clear. So if a student, you said they can appeal for that gap year. However, is that only if they have already applied by November 1st and have applied for Tennessee Promise? You're not saying if you did not do that, we can't go back and make you eligible?
Good question. You've got to complete this process.
Right, so if you did not, and life happens, something changes, you can't call Jason and say, oh, Jason, this has happened, I want to appeal this, and you're like,
So,
you're saying a gap year, but they would have had to have done this by November 1st this year.
to appeal it, yes, from a gap year perspective.
Yeah, okay.
Guys, you're gonna get my contact information at the end, I promise. Folks, I'm just very relaxed right now. This is a great presentation. I don't need to take all night, but I'm like having so much fun. But I'm gonna say this, and for everyone. Folks, from a state aid perspective, there's so much nuance to it sometimes. I would say to anyone, you're always more than welcome to call me or email me or text me with a question. Especially if, Michelle, life does happen. Like, I'd like any of y'all to at least run the scenario by me. Let me be the thumbs up, thumbs down about appealing. You know what I'm saying? But generally speaking, to Michelle's point, if you want to use promise in a gap year, you got to do this requirement. You got to do these requirements, and that will allow you to potentially do it.
So why did they tailor it that way to say, well, we want our kids to
Dad,
stay?
we don't have that much time to do all that. No, I say that in jest.
Because kids change their mind. I guess that's what I'm saying is, this is a great program, but it may not be great for the 17-year-old that's graduating next May.
Yeah, the argument from me, and this is, I don't think I have any colleagues in here, the argument internally for me at times is, and especially in a time right now where our college going rate is on the decline for various reasons, why not open these programs up a little bit more? I mean, I'm a proponent of that internally, but understand, in some instances, that's not an agency decision, that's actually a legislative decision. And so some of these policies and rules are legislatively driven.
So I need to call my senators? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, please. Yeah, I
know-
love that.
I know a few
I like
of
this guy. Yes. This is where I was going right quick about the application, Michelle. Forgive me for going on a tangent there for a second. Is this, moms, dads, on the Promise app, your name, your student is asked to list one parent, and also the parent's email and mobile number. Assuming they get that correct, then in November, what you will begin receiving are emails and texts from a group known as Tennessee Achieves. They will be the entity that will do the mandatory meeting, and they will also be whom you submit and complete your 8 hours community service with. So just heads up, in November, assuming all of your students complete the Promise application, y'all, the student and you, will begin receiving emails and texts, assuming that was reported correctly. Jackie, next slide. Dad, go ahead.
Real quick, I'm sorry. If I'm divorced,
Yep.
and my son is claimed under my taxes,
Yeah.
is it my income and stuff, or does hers still come into the picture?
So if you're asking me a Fafsa question, hold that thought for maybe 3 minutes, and we'll get to it. That's a great question. From a Promise application perspective, though, I just need that student to enter the parent's information for Promise that's good at opening email and receiving text. Dad, I say that forgetting just a little bit, but seriously, in split households, there could be where, in one sense, I might have you do the FAFSA, but from a communication perspective, we may need mama to get that, right? So from a Promise perspective, just FY. Don't think of it in terms of whoever between the two of you do better on communication. That's who the student should list, in my opinion. Mama.
Quick question. You said TCAP in fall 17 or how many
Yeah,
TCAPs are?
yeah.
Is that the same with Columbia State? Because there's a lot of different locations applications for
Yes.
Columbia State.
Yeah.
It all depends on what classes are in
Yeah,
state,
yeah.
right?
So if I'm going to Columbia versus I'm going to Lawrence County versus I'm going to Marshall County versus I'm going down the street to McEwen Drive, right? Yeah, Columbia State's Columbia State, that they're gonna be promise eligible. And on the FAFSA, there's only one Columbia State that you will select because the main campus out of Columbia is who dictates all the financial aid for all campuses. Just like Nashville State, the main campus on White Ridge Road dictates financial aid for all campuses, whether they're in Humphreys County, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah.
And when students fill out for the Tennessee Promise, if they put Columbia State and change their mind, they can go back in and change that, because kids stress out about that. We're like, it's okay, just put one, you can go back and change it later.
Guys, I'm a proponent, just put Columbia State and move on. Why? Because honestly, the FAFSA ultimately dictates where your money goes to anyway. And so from a promise application, we just need to get it submitted. Just select Columbia State and move on and be done. Mom?
Two questions. In order to maintain Hope Scholarship, what is the requirement? And is it something you need to reapply for every year? Does it automatically renew? How does that work?
All right, so what are my requirements for Hope Scholarship purposes? I love these questions. This is why I love doing these presentations, especially with y'all. Two things. You gotta do the FAFSA every year, right? Said that a couple times. Repeat, that's good to reiterate. FAFSA is how you apply and reapply for Hope every year. Your child has to maintain a 3.0 GPA. As long as they maintain a 3.0 GPA, by the way, I'm fibbing a little bit. And I say that because their GPA is going to be reviewed every 24 attempted hours post-high school. And at that time, there's different GPA benchmarks. But you need to have a 3.0 because when I go in the classroom, I don't like to say, oh, student, you just need to have 275. Because guess what? If they have 275 and then 275, it's going to be hard to get a 3.0 when you need that beginning of the 72-hour benchmark. So, Mom, again, to be, I teach your students you must maintain a 3.0 to maintain Hope eligibility, in addition to completing the FAFSA. So this is how Promise works, just as an illustration. You do the Promise process, you attend a community college or a TCAT. Tuition roughly is $2,250 a semester. That's illustrated by that middle dashed line. So the idea with Promise is it's the last dollar scholarship to offset tuition that's not covered by other financial aid that we talked about. So 3 examples. That student 1, their Pell Grant and TSA alone is covering is covering their tuition. And the additional money that's beyond, above that dash line, they're getting a refund to pay for books and gas and food and stuff like that. So student 1 is not going to receive any additional Promise money. Why? Because their tuition is already covered at Columbia State based upon other aid. Student 2 is Hope eligible, but notice there's a gap. Student 3 doesn't qualify for any financial aid. Why? Because the student's income based on the student's EFC based upon the FAFSA, parents' income, et cetera, is above Pell and TSA eligibility. Moreover, they graduate with a 19 and a 2.9 or whatever GPA, so that means they're not Hope eligible from a Columbia State perspective. Jackie, one click. That's how Promise works. So for student 2, if I'm only Hope eligible at Columbia State, I do the Promise process. That's where Promise will kick in $650 in this example to allow me to go tuition free. Student 3 gets a quote full tuition scholarship at Columbia State because they're not getting any other aid from Pell or Hope or TSA. That's how Promise works, folks. Now this is where I do have to take a minute and talk about the following. As you guys explore UT, ETSU, now the University of Memphis, I learned today, my goodness, all these four-year colleges, they have now started their own Promise scholarships. They have their own requirements. So don't get confused. This one I'm talking about is specifically for Columbia State TCATs. Jackie, next slide. All right, Just a note, more information can be found on College for 10. Families, any of your students that have a 29 ACT and better as of Christmas, you may want to circle to complete the McWhorter application. I'm going to get to Mom's question in a second about the TSAC account. But in that TSAC account, that's where you will find the McWhorter application that opens up in January. Full disclosure, McWhorter is it is our competitive scholarship, period. We only award 50 of these. The average recipient's a 34 ACT and a 3.98 GPA, and that is a Hope GPA, not your WCS GPA, as of Christmas. So for McWhorter, that's as of Christmas. Anyways, McWhorter. Deadline's February 15th. Again, the application opens up in January through the TSEC account, which we will talk about. Actually, I probably don't need to talk about now. Hope Foster Child Tuition Grant. Students who are been in foster care at age 13 and thereafter, there's an additional money for them. For more information, I'd just say contact me or visit College for 10. Step Up Scholarship is very unique. It's an awesome program. If I am working with a student who's considering the Vanderbilt's Next Steps program, Lipscomb's Ideal program, these are students that have intellectual disabilities and graduate with an IEP. There's money to help them with those programs through us. Again, for more information, contact me or visit College for 10. Finally, if a student I'm working with has a mom or dad that's been tragically killed or permanently disabled as a Tennessee police officer, a Tennessee firefighter, or a Tennessee EMT person, there is a scholarship, God bless these people, for these students. Again, contact me for more information. Before we talk FAFSA, because I get to Dad's question in a second, Mom asked about the TSAC account. So forgive me. When your student goes, it sounds like they've already created their account. If they begin going to, actually you can get to it through College for 10, where you go to TSAC account and log in with their username and password, that's where they can access their financial aid summary. That's Mom, I think you were asking earlier. The specific website, if you want to go directly, is tn.gov/TSAC student portal. So TSAC student portal, TSAC student portal is a direct website, but this is where you log in, where you complete Promise. It's where you complete dual enrollment grant applications. It's where you complete the McWhorter application. If you qualify, it's also where you can see your state aid summary. And again, that's tn.gov/TSAC student portal. That's a direct link to that TSAC account. All right, Promise. And guys, I know this is long. If some of you have things to go home for, you're not going to upset me if you have to leave. I promise. A few more minutes. Jackie, next slide. Let's talk FAFSA. So as a 12th grade family, you're going to want to do the 23-24 FAFSA, which opens up this weekend. I would tell you, honestly, to avoid the FAFSA this weekend, because oftentimes October 1st and October 2nd are the worst 2 days doing the FAFSA, because that's when everyone inundates the system. I'd wait till Monday, honestly, and you'll be fine. Notice the 23-24 FAFSA does ask about 2021 tax information and income information, folks. For those of you, how many of you done the FAFSA before? So 5, 6, 7 years ago, FAFSA actually shifted from using, quote, this year's tax information to what's called prior tax year information. Which means this 23-24 FAFSA is solely going to be based upon your 2021 income. So when you submit it, you've got to report 2021 income and tax information. Which leads me to say the following. Jackie mentioned earlier, well, what if a parent lost their job? Or what if there was a significant financial burden that was incurred between 2021 and 2022? All right? What y'all need to do, you need to submit the FAFSA, just as I asked you to do. But at some point, follow up with your financial aid office to talk about your situation. Because there may be a special circumstance that it can be applied here, where they can look at your current situation. but for the majority of us, this FAFSA is going to be based upon 2021 tax information, and we move on. All right, now, Jackie, the next slide. Let's do the 3-step FAFSA right quick. So if you've never done the FAFSA, or if it's been a while, here's your 3 steps. Step 1, student needs to create a username and password at studentaid.gov. That can be done today. That can be done before you go to complete the FAFSA next week, next month. But the student must create a username and password where FAFSA will ask, much like we ask on the promise application, for their name, their social, and their date of birth. Now, moms, dads, some of you are going to be doing this for your son and daughter. And I always say, guys, I'm not with FAFSA. I give you permission. You got to do what you got to do. You do, right? That being said, parents, don't be that person that goes to create a username and password for your student, and you put their name and your social and their date of birth. Don't be that person. Don't be that person. Again, students need to create a username and password, their name, social, their date of birth. Step 2, if you've never done the FAFSA before, I need one parent to create a username and password under their name, social, date of birth. Back to Dad's question earlier about Jason, I might have a situation where mom, dad, divorced, separated, what have you. What about us? Guys, those of you that are in that situation, the following is my way of FAFSA, honestly, to answer the question. FAFSA asks, who does the child live with the most? Okay? If that is mom, then I need to use mom's information in FAFSA. Because again, FAFSA specifically says, not who claims to owe the income taxes. FAFSA asks the student, who do you live with the most? It is that parent who should complete the FAFSA. So if my mom and dad are divorced, and I was living with my mom, and my mom is single, then only mom's information is needed. However, if mom is remarried, then FAFSA does need mom and step-parents information. Okay? Now, what if my living situation is 50-50? If it is 50-50, a financial aid office would ask the following. Does the divorce decree outline who the custodial parent is? If a divorce decree does, okay, if it's truly 50-50, if the divorce decree says one parent is custodial parent, then that parent is who should do the FAFSA. If it's joint custody on the divorce decree as well, at that point, Dad, and anyone else in here, how I've been taught for years is in that scenario, use which parents makes the least to do the FAFSA. Now, there will be some colleges that will challenge me about that, because again, ultimately, it's the college that has to process all this, right? So folks, here's the number 2 thing to walk away with me tonight. FAFSA is correctable. FAFSA is correctable. So if you make a mistake, it is correctable. If in my guidance to you, if some college you go to says Jason's an idiot and it should have been the other parent that should have done the FAFSA, you can correct that. Okay? But Dad, hopefully that helped. If we need to talk afterwards, we can, or talk tomorrow, next week, or next month, we will. But hopefully that answered that. Back to step 2. If you've never done the FAFSA parent, one parent does need to create a username and password. So those of you that raise your hand that says, I have done the FAFSA before, I assume you already have a username and password, which leads to this. If you have forgotten your username and password, go to studentaid.gov, click login, and click on the forgot username and forgot password links. I'd go ahead and do that now so that you can retrieve and reset your account as a parent. Alright? So once those accounts have been created or retrieved, now it's time to do the FAFSA. You're going to do again the 23-24 FAFSA. Sections 1, 2, and 3 is all about the student. Again, mom, dad, if you're driving this, when you get to section 3 and the students begin being asked, do you have a child? Are you married? Etc., etc. Again, it's asking that student. So that's why I take the time to go over this. Section 2, colleges. Folks, you can list up to 10 at a time. So if your students apply to 16 colleges, you need to list 10 on one Fafsa, press submit. Let that process 3 days. 3 days later, go back. Go click add more schools. Understand, once the Fafsa is processed, the 10 colleges that you have sent to will now receive that record. So when you go back in 3 days and you hit add more schools, what you should do is you should strip out those 10 and now add schools 1, 2, 3, or 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 in my example. For those of us that are only considering 3 or 4 schools, all you need to enter is 3 or 4 schools. I would say for everyone, I'm one of these people that says because of promise, at least add Columbia State, especially if you are, Jason, I've applied 3 schools, it's 4-year school, 4-year school, 4-year school. For your 4th school, for giggles, just go ahead and add Columbia State, because as Jackie, Michelle, and I will attest to, in case life happens, you need to apply to Columbia State next semester in the summer. At least we'll already have our FAFSA and go from there. Sections 4 and 5 is about the parent information. Section 5 is where you're going to answer questions about your income, tax information. Ideally, you're going to be able to use what's called the IRS data retrieval tool, which will transfer your tax information. Just one heads up to my married parents, you will be able to transfer your tax information. However, FAFSA does ask 2 questions. How much does parent 1 earn from work versus how much does parent 2 earn from work? Unfortunately, like I'm using my wife as an example, when we file jointly, everything's joint. The FAFSA, in its calculation of the EFC, specifically asks for how much does parent 1 versus parent 2 makes, which means this, folks. You need to at least have your W-2s, or if you're self-employed, your Schedule 1 or K-1, those available so that you can manually enter how much I made parent 1 versus how much parent 2 made. So just a heads up about that. Finally, Section 6, Jackie, not yet, I'm sorry. I know you want to get out of here. But Section 6, again, they just need to hear this. Section 6, notes, students' financial information. Moms, dads, don't be that parent. Then Section 5, you enter that you made $150,000, and then Section 6 for the student, you say that they also made $150,000. Section 6 is about the student's income information. If they did not work in 2021, you're going to put 0. If they didn't file taxes in 2021, you're going to say no. But if they did work and they got a W-2, let's say for Chick-fil-A, you will at least enter what they made from Chick-fil-A in 2021. Okay? And then finally, Section 7 is where you sign and submit. Yes?
Is A, B, C, and D all underneath the student login?
Yes, it is. And yes, you should, and I missed that, Mom, you should log in as the student with the student's username and password. Because all of that, folks, this is a seamless application. There is no, oh, I have to log out to log in as a parent. No. This is a seamless application. I think it's easiest to always log in with the student username and password. And just understand, 1, 2, and 3, student sections. 4 and 5, parent sections. You'll use your parent FSA ID for the first time in Section 5, and then Section 6 and Section 7. So always log in as a student.
So maybe I fell asleep, but what's the number 2 for?
Because at the end, Dad, that's a good question. 2 things. Section 5, when you're transferring your tax information, that's when your username and password is asked for the first time. Plus, in Section 7, you as a parent must enter your username and password to sign as a parent, just like the student has to sign as a student. So that's why. That's a good question.
So when you logged in as a student, when you get to those parts, it's going to ask you to put in the parent's username and password when you're logged in as a student, or are you going to have to log out?
No, it will ask. So in other words, when you get to Section 5 and you say, I filed my 2021 taxes, I filed a 1040, I filed married filing joint, on the next screen, it'll say parent login. You'll click the button, you'll enter your username and password, you'll click take you to the IRS, you'll go to the IRS site, And that's where you will authorize the IRS to transfer your information. All right, Jackie, next slide. Parents, I just want you to take a picture of that right quick, those of you who are taking pictures. That's just a good checklist for you to have to prepare yourself, what documents you might need. Generally speaking, again, your organization may be different than my organization. I have a file cabinet, all of our taxes for the last 7 years. When I go to do a FAFSA, I pull out, right, a folder, and there's our 1040, there's our W-2s, there's our Schedule 1s, that's everything I need. That's how my world operates because I'm psycho like that. But I would encourage you, make sure you have this information readily available, and that's just a good checklist for it. Jackie, next slide. Checklist, take a picture of it. That's just kind of a synopsis of everything we talked about. I'm going to send these to my PowerPoint here and get this after the fact. Plus, apparently I'm being recorded as well. My goodness, he's going to sit through a 90-minute presentation. All right, good. Jackie, next slide. One more. One more. One more. There you go.
Back up, back up.
Oh, you want that one too? You can have that one. Sorry, Jackie. That's on me. They like the financial aid terms. This is everything that I said, maybe defined, but in case you need to hear me say it again, there you go. That's a good slide. And
I have one question for you, Jason,
Yeah, Michelle.
before we open it up for a question.
Yeah.
So I have been at the Scouting Conference the last couple of days,
Yeah.
and in one of the presentations, and it was entitled a college funding coach.
Yeah.
So one of the tips that this guy gave was never accept your first offer from a university financial aid package. And this is something I wasn't aware of. You know, I would think, you know, as a student and a parent, you get that first financial aid packet. You think, man, I've got to sign it right away, get it back. But he was talking about negotiating. I mean, do you know any truth to that? What is your recommendation?
Yeah, so
This is big news. I mean,
no, it's so financial aid offer. Person's encouraging us to, or y'all to negotiate. Is that right or wrong? Michelle, it's like a lot of things dealing with this process, that idea varies by college. There will be some colleges that might be willing to negotiate.
okay.
But then there are some of my colleagues here in Tennessee that would have blessed that person upside down because they said that.
I was wondering.
Guys, broad brush here. What I have found is private colleges typically are more willing to negotiate, whereas our public colleges are public colleges, right? And they have only a, if I'm using this term correctly, a finite of funds that they can disperse. So sometimes it's the public colleges that will bristle more of that idea. But no, Michelle, that is something that you know, in my checklist slide, I say, follow up with the college with questions. And I'm somewhat inclined to follow up with questions about, is this all I'm getting? You know, that's not necessarily negotiating, but it is asking an honest question of, is this all I'm getting? And then, you know, they may share with you, oh, well, he needs or she needs to do this or that or whatever. So it's not a bad idea.
Okay.
So again, once you get the offer, review it. If you want to ask, go ask questions and go from there. By the way, the end. So guys, my email, I'll get you. My email, that's my work cell. That means you can call or text me, whether that's tomorrow, next week, next month, next semester. Folks, I try to pride myself to follow up within 24 hours to all communications, but there are times like this week, folks, I don't mean to say woe is me, but this has been a great week where I basically have been starting my day at 7 a.m. at a school, and I've been ending at 7:30, 8 p.m. at night. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I have another one of these tomorrow. I love this time of year. But so, again, sometimes give me grace if you don't hear back from me pretty quick. Dad?
Just a quick question on the FAFSA calculations themselves. Do you know, like, generally weighted wise, is it more based on your income, or do they heavily weight what you might have as assets, savings, all that stuff? Because I've heard various things, and from a planning perspective, you might decide to do different things.
All right,
depending
so
on what they weight.
So in the calculation as it stands for this year, your income, the parent's income, carries, quote, the most weight. Assets in the calculation, I believe that I'd have to pull out the EFC formula guide to actually, don't quote me on this, people who are watching, don't quote me on this. I think assets are, like 20% of your assets are considered in the calculation versus like 80% of your income. Whereas from a student perspective, interestingly, it's 100% of their income and their assets. Now, that's not necessarily the end of the world when a student maybe only making $1,000 or $2,000. But my students who these last 2 years have started making $13,000, $15,000 a year as a high school junior, even if mom and dad's, let's say their combined income's 40 grand, where otherwise that student, based on their parents' income alone, might be Pell Grant eligible. When they add in their $15,000 income, they're no longer Pell Grant eligible because of how FAFSA assesses the student's income at 100% or their assets at 100%. So yeah, Dad, hopefully that answers that. Go from there. Folks, guys, thank you. I hope y'all learned something. I'm going to say this so Jackie and Michelle don't have to sleep here tonight. How about let's wrap up? I'm going to go outside. If some of you want to loiter outside with me in this nice September night, we can do that unless some security kicks us out. But let's let these two go. And God bless you. Let me know if you have any questions.